Welcome everyone to Andre's Basketball Worlds podcast, episode number 3. This is every team's last first overall pick. Now, if you're new to the podcast, go ahead, hit the like, comment, and subscribe to the channel in general. Basically, this podcast I discuss a lot of things about the NBA, whether that's the playoffs in a bigger format. I decide of small videos. I do big videos like this to give out even more thought process. That's all. Just give out more thought process. Now, of course, it's supposed to be once a week, but I've been really slacking. But I'm gonna get back into it eventually. But we're gonna try to get back to the once a week things, focusing on things just like this right here. This little short thing I'm doing right here. We'll keep it pushing. Keep it pushing. Of course, let me know down in the comment section about your team favorite first overall pick. If you had one, if you don't have one, then I mean you've been a solid franchise is what it sounds like. I don't know. So let's get started. We're gonna start from the top. I'll give you my thought process. Talk about these players best as I can overall. We'll go from there. Starting off with the Atlanta Hawks, they had David Thompson. If I'm not mistaken, David Thompson ended up getting traded from the Atlanta Hawks over to the Denver Nuggets. So Atlanta, they drafted David Thompson. He was a fantastic NBA player. Played, I think it was 70s and 80s. But he was a monster scorer, basically. He was just a monster scorer for the Denver Nuggets. Of course, like I said, he didn't play too long he didn't play at all for the Atlanta Hawks. Let's take that back. He didn't say, I'm going to get some research to see if they just traded him immediately or not, because I'm not 100% sure if he get automatically, I'm not too sure if he was added and then traded. Let me see. Let's see. He was a star for the North Carolina State back in college, leading the Wolfpack to his first NCAA championship in 1974. So shout out to him. He is one of 10 players to score 70 or more points in the NBA game. Amazing talent. So mid 70s to mid 80s is what he played. 4-time All-Star Game MVP, 2-time All NBA player, All NBA first team. He played in the ABA All-Star Game MVP, All ABA second team once, All NBA rookie team, All NBA rookie first team. Oh, he was rookie of the year. My fault. Rookie of the year. Got number 33, retired. Yeah. Nickname the Skywalker. The Skywalker. Yep. Bill Walton described Thompson as Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, and LeBron James rolled into one. So he's one of those fantastic players, one of those great guys. One of the great ones right there. Let's see. Okay, so he was drafted. He was drafted by. He was the number 1 draft pick for both the ABA and the NBA, Atlanta Hawks, in the 1975 drafts of both leagues. But he ended up signing with the ABA's Denver Nuggets. And then he made his career as the first all-time great Denver Nugget player. So back in the day, the ABA was able to do that. The ABA and the NBA was able to draft players, and then the players get to choose where they want to play at the NBA. And I'm gonna end up breaking down one of these days about the entire ABA in general, because I think a lot of the all-time greats, if they were able to came over way earlier than that, way earlier to the NBA, I think we'd be looking at a lot of different things. You know what I'm saying? Next up for the Boston Celtics is a player named Charlie Scher. Never heard of this player. He was drafted first overall in 1950s NBA draft. Okay, so 6'11" center. 6'11" center. He won a championship with the St. Louis Hawks. So shout out to him. Yeah, I have yeah. Yeah, I don't know about this guy. I have no information on this guy. I don't know anything about him, quite honestly. I've never heard of the guy. From the career stats, if we take a look at career stats in general, they all shot bad percentages in the early years like that. But look like this a guy who just a double-double when he got the minutes to play. That's it. I don't I don't know anything about the man. I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't know nothing about Mr. Charlie Share. Next up, we got the Brooklyn Nets or the New Jersey Nets, how you even want to call it. And the player they ended up getting was Kenyon Martin, a very solid power forward for the 2000s, one of the probably a top 10 power forward in the 2000s. Played his role. He just played his role. He was drafted by the. I mean, he was a part of that. I think he went number one in the 2000s NBA draft, if I'm not mistaken. Just a solid role, just a solid player, solid power forward guy who played for the Nets, and then he went up to play for the Nuggets. Solid NBA career. This is one of those solid players. Uh, didn't win a championship or anything like that, but solid career, solid career. Next up, the Hornets is Larry Johnson. He didn't spend too many years there. I think it was 5 to 6 years for the Charlotte Hornets. One of the like I said, another really solid power forward during the 90s NBA. But he wasn't there for too long to branch out his career because he ended up going over to the New York Knicks and helping the Knicks get to the NBA Finals a couple times or once. He went to the NBA Finals with them. He had a falling out with Alonzo Mourning. They had the duo right there in the front court for the Hornets, and then they ended up having a falling out. Probably some beef, some sort of beef, some sort of beef. For the Chicago Bulls, it is Derrick Rose, the youngest MVP ever. Um, he's a what if. He's definitely one of the best what ifs. He's one of the what ifs in NBA history because of his knee injuries. Like he had that big knee injuries, but after that, it was just a lot of nagging injuries. I think that hampered Derrick Rose a lot throughout his career. There's a lot of people that believe he was going to win a championship at some point. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I'll say one thing. I'll say one thing. The 2015 Bulls almost beat the 2015 Cavaliers. They almost did it, and then I don't know what would happen if they would have ran into that 60-win Hawk team. I don't know if they was able to beat them or not. I don't know, and I don't think they would have touched the Warriors in the finals if they got that far. I don't think so. But Derrick Rose, I think I know that the back and forth with Derrick Rose is whether or not he's a Hall of Famer because his prime was cut short. His prime was cut very short. Not only was his prime cut short, but post injuries and stuff, he didn't do it. He didn't really establish a career after that. You know what I'm saying? He really didn't establish much after that. I think he should have accepted a 6 man role a little bit earlier, like after he came back in 2015. I think like 2016 moving forward and stuff like that. I think he should have accepted a bench role and try to become that elite bench player for playoff teams or championship level teams and stuff. I think that would have been better for his career long term wise. Maybe he could have won a couple 6 men of the year awards. I mean, yeah, when he was in New York, what was it 17-4-4? In a triangle offense, an outdated triangle offense. I'm pretty sure if I could take that 17-4-4 from Derrick Rose and add it to any other teams throughout the years that were playoff teams throughout that time frame, I think he could have won 6 men. I think he could have won at least 2 or 3 of them thing on 6 men of the year awards, and it would have been great for his career long term wise. But you know what I'm saying? It sucks. It sucks. He's winding down. He's in Memphis right now. I thought he was going to retire. I think he said he was going to retire, but then he changed his mind and said he's going to come back for another year. So shout out to D Rose, man. Wish we could have seen you. I wish we could have got at least. I wish we could have got at least 7 non-injury years from you to see exactly where we could have really ranked you all time wise, in my personal opinion. Next up, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers with Andrew Wiggins, a player who never played for the Cavaliers. They ended up trading him over to the Timberwolves for Kevin Love. So Andrew Wiggins, up and down career, quite honestly. Rookie year was solid. He had a year he averaged 23 for the T-Wolves. Then they got Jimmy Butler, and then his points and stuff went down, and he just didn't fill out for the Timberwolves. He just didn't become what he's supposed to be, what everybody thought he was going to be for the Timberwolves. Get traded over to the Golden State Warriors. Had a great his first year was decent, was good, was solid. Second year was even better. Helped winning the championship. Arguably, you can call him a top. He was one of the 3 best players. He was an all-star. And then the past couple years, he just back to what we know about Wiggins. It sucks. I don't understand it. I quite honestly don't understand it. It's kind of weird. Very don't understand that one. I don't know about Andrew Wiggins, but he did not live up to his number one status. You know what I'm saying? He did not. Next up, we have Mark McGuire from the Dallas Mavericks. Mark McGuire played back in like in the 80s, I want to say, the late 70s and 80s, if I'm not mistaken. He was one of those. He was one of those good glue guys, right? He was one of those glue guys, a guy who can score with the best of them. One of the better small forwards in the league at that time period. Underrated, underrated. I don't think anybody know much about Mark McGuire like that. Very underrated, in my personal opinion. 1981 was when he was drafted, so he was he was 80s, definitely 80s, definitely 80s. So if I'm not mistaken, he got traded over to the Pistons, and he was the glue guy for the Pistons, the bad boy Pistons, to win a championships, to win two of them things, 3-time All Star. Uh, about 20. He was a 20-point per game scorer, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. This is his career stats. Defensive monster. Defensively, he was great. Offensively, he was a monster. Literally 20-point per game scored throughout majority of his prime, and then he settled down with Detroit and became a champion. So one of the better small forwards that don't get talked about, very underrated in my personal opinion. Probably one of the guys that helped limited Jordan during those time periods from him getting past them at any point of time. So shout out to Mark McGuire. Very underrated, very underrated. Denver Nuggets never had a first round pick. That's very interesting. Next up, we got the Detroit Pistons. Kay Cunningham. This happened a few years back. Uh, we haven't. I mean, he just finished technically his true second season, but technically his third season in the NBA. And we just got to see it. We don't know yet. We just got to see. We don't know. Don't know yet. Don't know. We'll see. We'll see what he comes up um, about 5 to 10 years from now. Like 10 years from now, we'll see. We'll be talking about him again. We'll see what he accomplished in the NBA in general. Next up, the Golden State Warriors. Joe Smith. This is a name I'm pretty sure this is a name I've heard of. Is he not the same Joe Smith that tried to with the Timberwolves and stuff, and they ended up having to forfeiting their draft pick and stuff because of that? Yeah, I have no opinion on Joe Smith, quite honestly. I have nothing to say about Joe Smith because I don't know him much about as a player. If I take a look at his stats really, I mean, his stats seem like they were up and down. It's like his first 3 years, 15 to 18 to 19 point per game scorer. And then after that, he was role playing numbers 10, 13, 10, 12. I don't know what he actually brought to the table when it comes to basketball for the came to basketball in general. I don't know. I don't know if he was that much important that caused the Timberwolves to forfeit draft picks. I don't know how good that player that he was for them to do that. I have no idea. So no opinion on Jordan Smith. Next up, we got the Houston Rockets, which is a Yao Mean, another player that really doesn't get talked about much in a what if scenario because he ended up getting injuries from because he was a big guy, 7'3" or so. He was a really big center, and he doesn't get talked about much, but he had injury problems too. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but he was an all-star every single year, if I'm not mistaken. Every single year he played, he was an all-star. So it was a what if scenario where what if he stayed healthy or he was good to keep going for 10 to 13 years of an NBA career, or how would that have looked for the Houston Rockets moving forward, especially, later on when they got, I don't know if he was in the league when James Harden got to Houston. I don't know if y'all was still in the league or was he gone by then. Let me take a look. Oh, sorry. He's 7'6". My fault. I don't know what I'm talking about. 7'3", 7'6". Crazy height. Crazy height. Definitely one of the bigger men in the NBA that during Shaq's dominant run, and quotations on that, he was a guy that who can go up to Shaq and give Shaq a hard time also, one of the younger guys that could give Shaq a hard problems in the paint. And yeah, he ended up retiring at 30. He ended up retiring at 30 because of injury. So that sucks. He retired at 30 because of injury. So I could only imagine I can only imagine in his prime, like he's still, I mean, without injuries and stuff, he kept going. If the Houston Rockets would have ever got James Harden, and if they did, how much would an older he would have been what 30? He would have been he was 30 in 2011, so 32, 33 when he starts slowing down a little bit. Yami starts slowing down a little bit, but James Harden's there, so maybe that would have extended his career longer. That could have been something. That definitely could have been something. The Pacers does not have a first overall draft pick. Okay. Next up, the Clippers and Blake Griffin. Uh, Playoff injuries. He had playoff injuries. Outside of playoff injuries, I think in a very couple of his early years, he was a dunker. He dunked the ball a lot, majority of the time, like 100% of the time, he was just dunking the ball and stuff. And then later on, he started developing his skills. Starting to hit the mid range, start taking it to the 3-point line, showcasing he's a playmaker and stuff. I think. Well, I think the Lob City Clippers was great. I feel like there was something that I feel like Blake Griffin's development could have been more. Maybe because there was injuries that was holding him back, but at some point he was top 4, top 5 in MVP voting. I can only imagine what Blake Griffin would have came into if he didn't have a lot of injuries. If his injuries, if you take let's say that his MVP season, right? This year he was top 5 in MVP or whatever. Let's say from there on for the next 3 to 4, let's say for the next 4 years, a healthy Blake Griffin from the regular season to the playoffs. What would we be saying about Blake Griffin? Because I think he would have developed his mid range more. That 3-point shot would have came around a little bit more earlier. His playmaking was solid too. So having another playmaker outside of just Chris Paul would have been, I think, they would have done wonders for the Clippers. I think that would have expanded the Clippers and make them less predictable than what they were doing. But yeah, he was a fantastic player for the Clippers. Definitely should get his jersey retired by the Clippers. I don't know what the Clippers doing. He definitely his jersey retired by the Clippers. I think he's one of the best. I think he was awesome. I think he was awesome for them. Next up for the Lakers, he had James Worthy. That was way back. James Worthy get drafted to the Los Angeles Lakers, to a Lakers team that was already stacked with Magic and Kareem, and then you add James Worthy to continue a monster dynasty. Definitely the sidekick to Magic. 5 championships. I mean, they won championships. I mean, he won as many championships as he could. Um, Fantastic player for the Lakers. One of the best, one of the greatest Lakers of all time. Quite honestly, that's just that simple. The Memphis nor the Heat had never had a number 1 draft pick. Crazy. The Milwaukee Bucks was Andrew Bogut. Now, a lot of people don't know much about Andrew Bogut, but Andrew Bogut, in his prime, that was during his Milwaukee days, he was a beast. He was a beast. He was definitely a beast. I was like, oh, that's what's up. I seen some highlights from him. I was like, oh, I did not know he was like that, like that. He was awesome. He was definitely a beast. He ended up getting injured. He ended up getting a major injury, and that major injury just cut what Bogut was going to be. I think he was like a 15 and 11 type of player with like 2 blocks, I think, something like that. But injury cut him short, and then he ended up going to the Warriors, and then he ended up winning the championship with the Warriors. So it kind of just worked out for Bogut, quite honestly. It definitely worked out for Bogut. Still work out for him anyway. But shout out to Andrew Bogut, one of the elite, one of their defensive monsters over there for the Golden State Warriors. One of the reasons why he was one of the reasons why they did go 73-9. You know what I'm saying? And he's also probably the reason why they ended up losing the 2016 championship, because he went down with injuries, and then they had to put in Anderson Varejao out of his prime, and other players like that in the lineup without him. If he was in the lineup still, hey, hey. Next up, the T Wolves is Anthony Edwards. Right now, we're seeing him rising. Of course, I made a video a couple days, maybe a week ago, about him rising, making the argument being the best shooting guard in the league, arguably making the best shooting guard in the league based off this playoff run alone. They just pushed Denver to a game 7. Being about 45 was crazy in the playoffs. That is crazy talk. That is crazy. And Anthony Edwards, he just rising. He's definitely what he's doing. He's definitely rising, looking to knock on that superstar status. Though, like I said, right now, I can make an argument that he's all star. He's a star player right now, and he's going to be knocking on that superstar level in about a couple seasons, probably a couple more seasons. He'll be, hey, this is a nice room with superstars. Can I join at the table? It's coming. It's coming sooner. But the Pelicans is Zion Williamson. So we got to see Zion in the playoffs. Let's be honest. We see what he does in the regular season. That's cool. That's cute. We've seen him in the regular season. We know what he can do in the regular season. We know what kind of player he is in the regular season. We need to see it in the playoffs now. That's what we're waiting on. We're waiting on playoff Zion. We got to see. There's a lot of things that people are trying to figure out when it comes to Zion and the way he plays the game of basketball, and whether or not what he does in the regular season can translate to the playoffs. That's what we're waiting on. That's what I'm waiting on. There's other people waiting on that. We're all waiting on it because we want to see something. We're trying to see something. We can't see that right now with him not in the playoffs. So Zion, let's get some healthy. Let's get healthy. You drop a lot of weight and stuff. Now let's see if we can maintain some health and move forward before we have to start calling you. You know what I'm saying? Like, next up, this is the Knicks with Patrick Huey. Basically, arguably, you can make an argument he's the best center in Knicks history or the second best center in Knicks history. Depends on when you have Willis Reed. Names belong to Patrick Huey. Names belong to him. The Knicks, they was great. That was great for him. Ironically, when I was taking a look at his stats one time because I was looking at his stats and stuff, and what I noticed is that he was mostly a defensive player. He wasn't like offensively, he was good too, but the way I was looking at it, I was like, he was more defensively more than he was offensively. He'll have a season to where he's averaging like 21 points, he'll grab 10 rebounds, and he'll have like 3 blocks, 2.5 to 3 blocks. And it's like, was he more defensively? Because I always thought he was more offensively, and his defense was just as good as his offense. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking he was mostly a defensive minded center that also scored the ball. And a player like that, if he didn't play in the 90s, right? Because he had to play against the Hakeems and the David Robinsons and the Shaqs and the Alonzo Mournings, players of that nature. If and he, a lot of times he didn't make All NBA because it was only 3 spots for All NBA. If I could take a 27-year-old Patrick Huey and toss him in the 2000s of the Knicks basketball, I think we'll be looking at him in a different light. I think he'll be getting some MVP votes and stuff like that. I think he'll have a different light. 2010s, he'll have a different light. Right now, he'll have a different light. I think he's underrated. He's scarily underrated. He just didn't win because of the era he played in and against the top talent that he had to deal with on a night-to-night basis. That's my personal opinion. I think he was underrated. I think he was just born. I think he was just in the wrong era at the time. Maybe even the 80s, he could have done some work in there too. Like 1980, he could have done some work too because what was it? Kareem, a young Hakeem, Rap Sampson for a few seasons, um, Moses Malone. So it's not like the 80s was super stacked with the center position. I personally think so. I think he could have made a bigger name for himself in the 80s, potentially. But then again, I don't know what the Knicks teams in the 80s looked like before he was drafted. So I'll take that back. My Oklahoma City Thunder never had a never have a first draft pick. I think we've had like second and third. We never have first. I don't think we ever will. Well, we got these picks, so we never know. Might be one of ours. Anyway, the Magic, Pablo playing Bankura. He was also part of that video with Anthony Evans when I said Rising Stars. He definitely rose this season, especially in the playoffs. He struggled a tad bit here and there, but he played fantastic in my personal opinion for a young player that's already leading his team in points, rebounds, and assists is ridiculous already. He's like 21. That's crazy. So I can only imagine how much the step in he's about to take coming into next season. It's going to be fantastic. And I can't wait. I will be making a video, probably another podcast saying buy stock on these players, right? And he's one of those guys you're going to have to buy stock on based off of this playoff run. 76ers Markel Fultz, definitely a bust. Let's be honest. He had the little shoulder injury with a shooting form and stuff like that, and then he just didn't figure it out with the 76ers. Right now, he's on the Magic next to Pablo, playing with Pablo, but he comes off the bench. He's another player I feel as though his defense might be what was where he needs to work on more than anything. He's like a player that I think the Spurs should go after him. The Spurs should definitely go after him. The Spurs should go. I think he has potential that could be unlocked in a different uniform with a different team that doesn't focus on a lot of other players. Markel should definitely find his talent with the San Antonio Spurs. He should go to the Spurs. I think Pop can unlock Markel folks a little bit more. My personal opinion. The Suns was DeAndre Ayton. Ayton in the beginning of his career, he had very promising. It looked like the duo of him and Devin Booker was going to be great for years to come. But I think the whole Chris Paul coming over and they changing the way he wants to play and they changed the way he is. I think that played a factor into him as the NBA player. And as a result, he kind of like pushed night. He mentally kind of checked out. I think he mentally checked out. Now he was at Portland, didn't have a really good season with Portland. I think he might have a bounce back season next year for Portland. And I think he's a guy that we all need to look out for to get traded to a playoff team. If I'm the Lakers, he's definitely a player that I would target to add to push AD back to the power forward position. He's definitely a player I look to add to my team. The Memphis should think about adding him to their team. I'm trying to think. Let me look at all these teams and point them out. The Bulls should definitely try go after him, but then again, they need to rebuild in general. Um, the Warriors should go after him definitely. Uh, the Clippers should go after him. The Lakers should go after him. The Grizzlies should go after him. The Heat should go after him to put Bam at the 4. Um, Aiton on Milwaukee. I don't know if that works next to Giannis. I don't know. We'll put a question mark on that one. Uh, not the Pelicans because that ain't gonna work out. My Thunder should definitely go after him. That's a player. If I'm my Thunder team, going through this off season, he's one of the players I have on my list of adding to my team. I think him and Chet Holmgren can work perfectly in that front court. That's just me, though. That's just me. The Magic could also think about going after him, also, especially if they're done with Wendell. I don't know what that situation is over there. Phoenix, and ironically, they could have used him this year, but nah, I know that's not gonna happen. The Spurs, him and Wemby in the front court, that'll be very interesting. It'll be very, very interesting. The Raptors, they have Jakob Porto in the front court. I mean, in the front as a center. So I don't know if they want to get off of him on that. The Jazz could definitely use him, and then the Wizards can really use anything. I think he's one of those players that this off season I can look at and the team wants to pick him up. Like a playoff team wants to pick him up. I think he's still got potential. I think he's still got a mode in him that can still be unlocked on a certain team or so. I think right now he just had one of those down seasons, kind of like when Porzingis was on the Wizards or he got traded to the Wizards and no one paid attention to him in the Wizards unless you was a Wizards fan or you just enjoy watching players play basketball. He went over to the Wizards and he developed certain things in his game that he was able to bring over to the Celtics, and it looked like a steal of a trade. I think DeAndre Ayton is in that situation right now to where he's in Portland, and then a team there's a one of these teams out of all the teams, one of these teams are taking a look at Ayton, thinking, you know what, maybe he can do something for us. We can add him and have him do this. It's there. It's definitely there. It's definitely there. For the Portland Trailblazers, we're looking at Grant Oden. Injuries took him away from the game of basketball. If we was able to get 6 years. Let's go 6 years. If we was able to get 6 years of injury-free Grant Oden, I think he would have dominated a lot because it was that lineup of him, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Brandon Roy all play together. They were like 50 and 16 or something like that, a ridiculous record. Yeah, so I could only imagine what he would have done without being injured. I think he would have been perfect. I think he would have been perfect for what the Blazers was trying to do at that point in time. For the Kings, we're looking at what is this? Previs Ellison. I don't know anything about him either. Never Nervous Previs was his nickname apparently. I don't know anything about this player. Let's take a look here. He was the number one draft pick for the 1989 NBA draft. He was largely hindered by injuries, and he did win the Most Improved Player in 1992. So injuries took his career away. Center for the Kings back in the so he played from basically the 90s to 2000 where he stopped. So he didn't get to play too long. Once again, injuries played a major factor into his career. Take a look at his stats in general throughout his career. He had a year, 92 is when he averaged 20 and 11. So 2011 that year, and then the next year was 17 and 9, and then injuries. Injuries just took him apart. Injuries, one of those players that had potential, and then injuries knocked him out. So man, can't blame that one. Spurs, Victor Wembanyama, alien for a reason. That boy good. And he's scary good already. I want to remind everybody, no matter how his career goes, for the rest of his career, what we just saw from his rookie year is the worst version of Victor that we're gonna see. If that's the worst version of Victor that we're gonna see, Spurs is in great hands for a while. If he played 13 seasons, then in 13 seasons he put up the exact same stats from his rookie numbers. He might get a little bit more scoring or something. As long as the team around him is better, yeah, he's gonna dominate. He's gonna look great doing this. This is crazy. Fantastic. Of course, he was just a rookie, so we still got a long career to go. Hopefully, we have a long career to go with him. But the Raptors, Andrade, what is his name? Not Andrade. Barnardi. If I'm not mistaken, he was one of those guys that were more of a stretch four. He was in the dirt type role of a stretch four. Just wasn't that fantastic at scoring yet. He just wasn't that fantastic of a scorer, but he could stretch the floor out to the 3-point line and hit mid range shots like that. Allergic to rebounding. So Enes Kanter, shout out to you, or Freedom, I should say. I think he was in that type of mode. That's cool. Early 2000s, 11, actually mid to late 2000s into the 2010s. Found himself out of the league for a reason. You know what I'm saying? That just wasn't gonna cut it. Jazz never had a first overall pick. I'm surprised actually. I'm surprised about that. And then finally, the Washington Wizards with John Wall, another one of those players that was fantastic. One of those fast playmaker, play defense. Couldn't shoot the three ball, but had a season to where the three ball was falling. Arguably, he had a point of time. He was arguably the best point guard in the Eastern Conference. Arguably, I think that was around the 16, 17, 18 seasons, around those 3 years. That was arguably that he was better than Kyrie and he was all this stuff or whatever. And I think, like I said, 2017 was his best year. I think he put up like 23 points per game, had like 10 assists, grabbed like 5 rebounds, had like 2 steals. Fantastic. He was great. He was awesome. Injuries took his career away from us too. Another one of those guys. Man, it's crazy. But that's the list right here. Top 10. Not top 10. Every team's last overall draft pick. Shout out to who got the number one draft pick this year? Atlanta. Atlanta just got the first pick this year, so we'll see what they do with that. But if you're new to the channel, hit the like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you guys on the next video.